So this road is Bolton Road, and we're gonna get over there. So this road until about 3 years ago was dirt, and it's actually it's a private road, and it was always maintained by the schools. And when Northfield Mount Hermon owned it, it was not maintained very well. But Thomas Aquinas, and they don't even own. Thomas Aquinas sold all the houses on either side basically to faculty members, and so they don't even really. They just out of the kindness of their heart paved this, which and I confess when I go to work I drive down this road, but I don't drive back on it at night. And was really glad to see that most everybody followed the Google Maps directions and came up North Lane, because I love my relationship with my neighbors. And so actually it's funny, I can start the tour here and talk about the auditorium. So D.L. Moody, this is great. I ran into somebody today who said that D.L. Moody didn't like lazy people, and that's my lead-in always, because he didn't like lazy buildings either. And the idea of opening a school where the buildings were empty from the middle of June until the middle of September was kind of anathema to him. And so the idea of summer conferences here was like part of, that was baked in to his plan for this campus. And the best example of it is the auditorium, which was, this is amazing. The ground was broken for this building in March of 1894, and it opened in August. Okay, so they got things done. It's easier if you don't have to worry about indoor plumbing, for example, or electricity. But it's still astonishing how fast that went up. And you also don't have to worry about OSHA or the EPA. Or all kinds of things. But this building didn't have heat until 1912. Although I saw a conflicting story that said 1916. But the point is that this was not going to be any good. This was not going to get used by the schools for anything. It was entirely put together for the conferences. And when this building was built, it was one of the largest buildings in Massachusetts. There were a couple of buildings in Boston that were bigger, but there was nothing bigger in Springfield, nothing bigger in Worcester. And people, like I can imagine the people of Northfield looking at this thing going up and saying, what is going on? And maybe not using language that was that nice. And saying like 2,500 people can sit in there. And that's, anyway, that's, so that's my rap about that. And the other, and it's very sad, like there's Hillside. The idea originally was to build these nice small dormitories because you get this kind of family feel to them. And at Northfield, they're largely successful, although not entirely successful, as I'll say a little bit later.
When we were seniors, we were allowed to go to a little building and cook things scheduled, and I think it's this.
Yeah, this is the Crane Cottage Annex.
That was it.
So this is where you.
And somebody lives there now.
Yeah, somebody lives there now. And then this is all broken up into apartments. I think I'm not exactly sure who lives here. I think it may be some married couples who are Thomas Aquinas students. Maybe in there. I don't know. I know what it was. Yes, it was a dormitory.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. Peter, during the conferences, where were all the tents pitched?
Oh, we'll see them. The tents were pitched all over campus actually, but on Siberia and at the foot of the hill below Round Top. So two really gorgeous dormitories, right? So that's Hibbard and Wilson in front of us, and the guy. So the architect of these buildings was Tony DeStefano's father. She was class of '54, and she loves to tell this story about how her father, when he's designing these things, he said, "Look, these are not this is form follows function. We are not going to worry at all about spending a lot of money on these buildings. And as soon as you have the money to build something nicer, tear these down. Like most architects, like the idea, like if you ask an architect, like, do you mind if we alter your building? They're not gonna. They don't even like plantings around buildings, because they want you to see this thing that they've designed. And so, but Tony DeStefano's father said, you know, that's fine. They can go away sort of as soon as possible.
1956, that's when it was built.
So yeah. Wilson is 56 and Hibbert is 62.
And these two houses, did they have anything to do in Northfield?
Yeah, they're faculty housing. So we're going to let this car go across, and then we're going to walk across.
Now, do you remember when we had the fire on the third floor?
Well, I've read about it, so I don't remember the fire. I can only imagine how it started.
Right.
No, it was a curling iron.
A curling iron.
She left it on.
Well, it's better that than like somebody smoking dope, right?
Oh no. And
Well, it might have been that.
we could hear it, and we were told to get out. And how long were we at the inn?
And we went to the inn and were there for several weeks.
Wow.
Horses, a sled, toboggan.
But the whole
Ski?
third floor was redone. It had to be.
So there's a question about the infirmary. So this is Betsy Moody Cottage, which it's really unfortunate. This goes to show, like, you can make something, you can paint something and make it beautiful, but if you don't like heat it and take care of it year after year. So this was beautifully restored on the outside in 2010, and it's not been painted, and look at that porch roof. Oh, that's terrible. The color is, but they did a really nice job painting it, and oh well.
But it's not being used now.
So it's not being used. It's not being used for anything now, and it's
Were
still
they historic colors to that house? To that
possibly.
We don't
Possibly, it was purple when when in the 80s when Joy Unsworth was really in charge of sort of campus beautification, and she took care of like all of the trim on all of these campus buildings. Mount Hermon and Northfield was all white, and she was the one that was in charge of using that blue and red trim, and it looks
Really Victorian.
yeah, yep. Yeah, so you really see the Victorian nature of these buildings, and this is Moody. This is Moody. It's called as a dorm, but remember, D.L. Moody wanted nothing named for him, and he adored his mother. She had a birthday that was the same as his, so that might have helped. But imagine what basketball players do when they sign their first big contract, is they go and they do something really nice for their parents, and so. Moody was always doing, putting additions on the birthplace and naming buildings, making sure that buildings got named for his mother. Betsy Moody Cottage. And, pardon? So Thomas Aquinas does not own that or the auditorium. The Moody Center does. So this is a very complicated thing, which very few people understand. And in terms of trying to tell you which buildings the Moody Center owns. So they own these two. They owned Hibbard, but not Wilson, but they sold Hibbard to Thomas Aquinas. They owned Daly House, but they traded Daly House straight up with Thomas Aquinas for Hillside. So that's why Hillside said they wanted to turn Hillside into a parking lot for their big conferences that they were going to have at the auditorium, which all of this is a pipe dream. None of this has happened, and there's no indication that it ever is going to happen. Then the Moody Center owns things at the south end of campus, but they owned the bookstore and they owned more, and they don't own those. They sold those to Thomas Aquinas, and Thomas Aquinas is very interested in obtaining all of the land inside these roads because they want and I would far rather have Thomas Aquinas own this than the Moody Center, frankly. I mean, and I think it may happen, but
Who is the Moody Center?
the Moody Center it's essentially backed by the Green family, who is Hobby Lobby. So they're the end of that. Okay, I mean they're backed by them. They're their own thing, kind of, but it's the same. All of the people are the same people, and
Do students live in Wilson?
students live in Wilson. I think Hibbert is currently vacant. I mean, students live in Gould and in Merrill Keep now. About 200 right now, but their goal is to get to about 450.
Peter, for what it's worth, the guy from St. Thomas at the seminar this morning, at the panel discussion, said that the sale is almost complete now for some of the buildings.
Oh, that would be awesome. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Thomas Aquinas. I mean, I disagree with them about one thing, which is their understanding of women's place in the world. Okay, but that's one pretty big thing. But that's only one thing, and if I can get my mind around that periodically, then a lot of the rest of it is pretty great. And I can't believe that I'm saying this, that I'm being recorded. This is.
It'll be viral on TikTok.
You need to edit some of this stuff out. I'd really appreciate that because I really like to maintain. I have a wonderful relationship with the people at Thomas Aquinas, and people say, well, there are these no trespassing signs up, and the fact is that for 9 years, the campus was empty, and people could just come and wander around. Actually, more like 15 years, and so people just got into the habit of walking their dogs and etc. and not really picking up after their dogs, etc. And Thomas Aquinas didn't like that, so they had to retrain a whole lot of people about land ownership. Let's go back to that. So here we are. This is one of my favorite spots because we can see these new buildings. We can see Betsy Moody Cottage, which is 1890, and we can see a corner of the seminary barns there, and hillside through the trees, and the seminary barn. So the girls didn't get to work the farm because that's not, that was not appropriate. But there was a farm here because you needed to have a farm in order to support any kind of population. So there was a dairy herd there that was like the dairy herd at Mount Hermon, but different. And people may remember the cows grazing over there. Were they gone by the time you were students? They were there. Yeah, I thought so. There's a wonderful woman, Irma Schachter, from the class of 45, who's recently died. But she is going to come back as a cow, and that was her whole thing, and she was going to be over there. So her spirit is wandering, grazing over there. But
the farm used to host a sugaring off process.
Yes, with
Oh.
grapes and snow and pickles.
so now I'm going to have to consult my notes to see what I've said. Oh, yeah. So the land that Moody acquired here. There are all of these stories. If you read what I wrote in Lift Thine Eyes, you get the actual story. There are these stories about how Moody bought all this land overnight, and so that nobody knew what anybody else was getting. And the fact of the matter is that Moody paid top dollar for it's actually pretty terrible soil up. It's very sandy up here. This is the delta of Lake Hitchcock, which during the last glacial period stretched hundreds of miles up toward what's now Canada, when the dam broke, it left all of these the deposits that it left here were sand, and they were it was not good soil. So Moody paid top dollar. He didn't care. He wanted to have a good relationship with his neighbors because he knew if I'm going to build a school here, right, we're going to have these are the people who are going to live around, and so we better make certain that we don't rook them in the land deal when we start the place. We want to have things start on a fair kind of way. So and then we have this beautiful building, like the buildings at Northfield. I mean, the architects. So Palmer Hall has got this is a real architect that designs this. And if you look like at those granite coins, you know, above each window. And if you look, as we get close, you'll see there's marble window sills. I mean, So what that brings me to is the fact that when these schools were founded, and for the first 15 years or so after D.L. Moody's death, so let's say up to about 1915, if you looked at the physical plant of schools, of private secondary schools around the country, this is as beautiful and as fine a campus, as an opulent a campus as you were going to find. I mean, maybe at a place, at a boys' school like St. Paul's, but Exeter, Andover, no. I mean, the Christian philanthropy that was lined up behind Moody to build these buildings, it's astonishing. And you look at what if you can picture which buildings were here. So this is relatively late. This is 1927, which is rare. This is about the only building, aside from the laundries on either campus, that was built between 1915 and 1950. Oh, Merrill Keep. So this in Merrill Keep. So Northfield had some construction, but Mount Hermon, there's no construction at all for years. So we can walk. Yeah, you can tell me any number of things.
I was a freshman, and I loved my teacher, and she said, I got a really great surprises for you. And she said, I want you to come and see me. Every morning I want you to come at 8:15. And so I was like, okay. And I went. And she said, what color paper do you like? Et cetera, et cetera. And after a while I realized I was doing terrible in math. And that's why she wanted me to come. So when my dad came to visit on Parents' Weekend, she said, I want to talk to your dad. And I said, what are you going to tell him? Well, that you're really working hard. But I loved her. She was wonderful.
So this building that I've said nothing about is I have to say, when I'm talking about attractive buildings on campus, like Weston is kind of the one building that I don't talk much about, because it's got this it's got this interesting tower on the roof. Like that's sort of Northfield, a nod to Northfield, but it's got a dormer on one end, and then these two little a gable end, and then these two little dormers on this end. It's very unbalanced. It's not as beautiful. It doesn't even have this plain beauty that Wilson and Hibbert have. And I know. So right. So but the thing is, so I wonder whether that was a right. So the thing is that if it was a freshman dorm at Northfield. And so then, unless you were one of the cops in that dorm, like you left that behind and then you never went back, maybe. But yes, but after coeducation, it was very quickly a boys' dorm because we'll give this to the boys. But anyway, it does have it still has these little features. So it's got this little little bump out. I'm forgetting, like a bay window, only it's made out of brick. It's not made out of plywood. So look, so this is marble. This is a marble. This is a marble windowsill.
And all the other windowsills are marble too?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, wow.
Look at the Flemish bonded brick. How come they lavished this luxurious masonry on this building? This is not a Merrill Keep or the other.
Well, well, we're going to see that they did do some pretty amazing things on some of these other buildings as well. But so you got this. You have this little Greek pediment on the front door. Like, wow, that costs money. Okay, and there was money to make things beautiful. And in fact, I will say this, that in the 1920s, it cost a lot less money to do these opulent things because labor was really cheap, right? So if you were the people who laid the bricks for the auditorium, you probably weren't getting paid a king's ransom the way, if you're a bricklayer now, you could probably be a member of the Bricklayers Union and do a little bit better for yourself. So, and then the buildings just keep coming at you, right? So here's Carnarvon, which if you don't know why it's called Carnarvon, Mrs. Joseph Kennedy, who was not of the Hyannis Kennedys, but nonetheless a wealthy Kennedy from a different line of Kennedys, had a summer home in Maine that was called Carnarvon. So she asked if the building could be named Carnarvon. But if, like the little frieze under the eave, that's not the original copper roof. That was a copper roof that was done, actually put on by the school, like right before we sold the campus. But it's beautiful, and all of the brick. If we come over here and see, hi. We're going.
Okay.
Okay, so
Right.
so we've actually been going kind of all the way along.
Okay,
So
wonderful.
we're good, and we're going to try to stay ahead of this other group. Okay, so but look at this. Oh my goodness. Like, you got to go here. I mean, maybe you didn't want to go in that building because maybe you didn't go in that building. I guess you went in that building for cash. Did you go in there to get money? Did your parents put some money on, and there was the cashier's office there? But anyway, these beautiful. I mean, those columns of roseate marble. Those are solid pieces of stone. Like, you don't just go down to Home Depot and pick out
Gotta go up to Vermont.
6 of those. Yeah, you got to go up to Vermont and you got to talk to somebody in a quarry. So we'll keep going.
So did the Johnson family pay to
The-
get that
the-
name on it?
The Kennedy family.
They paid for it?
Yeah, yeah, they paid. But the thing is that it's interesting. They didn't call it Kennedy Hall. They could have called it Kennedy Hall, but they didn't. They called it. Oh, thank you. All right, we'll come down here a little further. No, the family. So again, the connection with the Kennedy family and this building is D.L. Moody. D.L.
He was one of his funders.
Yeah. So I've got these maps that Thomas Aquinas has provided, and I'm going to pass these out to people who might want them.
Do you know the total acreage of the Northfield, the old
So
Northfield?
the core campus is about 300 acres.
This campus.
This campus. So yes.
For those of us who are not image
Yeah.
folks,
Yeah.
what is the mission and the actual function of Moody Center and Thomas Aquinas?
Well,
What are they?
So Thomas Aquinas is a great books college founded by Jesuits, and it's like, if you know St. John's College, which is where I went. It's got a core curriculum. Everybody. There are no textbooks. Everybody reads the same thing for over the course of 4 years. No electives, and it's a really great. All the courses are seminars, and the Moody Center would love to have there be an active Christian presence in Northfield, And what that actually means, you really need to talk to them about. But essentially, they would love for there to be conferences at Northfield again. And is that going to happen in this part of the world?
They're not doing it now?
No.
Are they related to the Chicago Moody's?
No, they're not. They're not related to the Moody Bible Institute at all. It's its own thing. And I actually find it. I don't think that they understand D.L. Moody the way D.L. Moody ought to be understood. And there's a new book by a guy named Greg Quiggle, who, and I don't have the book in hand yet. It only came out about 2 weeks ago. But Quiggle. If you remember anything, remember that name and read his biography of Moody, because he really gets him. He really understands what he was about. And you know, we have this very tortured relationship now at Northfield Mount Hermon with Christianity, and that's unfortunate. And I think that if we thought more about what D.L. Moody kind of stood for, we might be able to work some of that out. So,
One quick question.
Yep.
Chicago being an I don't know if there's any Chicago connection with the architecture.
No.
Because now the Moody thing is there, but that wasn't.
Right.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
so the Moody Bible Institute is a totally separate thing, and we walked past Merrill Keep, and that's an oversight. So that building was the architect for that building is a guy named Ralph Harrington Doane, who was Mount Hermon class of '08, and who designed the interior of the chapel at Mount Hermon, who designed Myra Wilson's house. Ned Meany, it's called Wilson House, but where Ned Meany lived, and you all visited him at some point, I hope. So the headmaster's house. So that's also a part of this school connection. So and then over here we have Gould, and Gould is really interesting. There's this great. So I don't know whether any of you remember the archivist at Northfield when you were there, but her name was Elsie Scott, and she had these trivia questions. And there was a trivia question: why did I think there's a car that wants to get through? Why did Evelyn Hall, who was the principal at Northfield from 1883 until 1911, why did she cry when she saw the plans for that building? And I have not been able to find the answer to that question. I don't know the answer, but I think I do. There was one answer that I always gave, which was she was really upset that they finally built this huge. They were going to build this huge building, and she was really in favor of smaller
I was
dormitories.
just going to say it was the scale, maybe.
So that's the way I always told the story. But I think that story is wrong, because I think that the story is logical, but I think that the story is that she knew she was going to die, and she was not going to get to see it completed. So I think that's why she cried. I could be wrong about that, but there's something that tells me that Evelyn Hall cared so deeply about this school, and she saw that it was growing, and it was going to continue to grow, and the construction of a dormitory of that size meant that this is a really healthy, great institution, and that she wasn't going to get to see it beyond 1911.
What year was it built?
It was built in 1912. So, and well, and a year after Crosley, and you have to remember, so the guy who was the principal after Evelyn Hall was this guy named Charles Dickerson, and he had been a science teacher at Mount Hermon forever, and you can imagine in 1911 he's watching Crosley go up, and so you can imagine that he was down with this. This is like Crosley Jr. This is okay, although this is I think both of those buildings are grossly underrated, and this one in particular.
I've heard of the different, large buildings.
Uh-huh.
At other, like places, I don't know exactly which ones, but the smaller colleges, that it seems like that was a well-off family, let's say.
Right. So yes, and Helen Gould is the daughter of Helen Gould Shepherd is the daughter of Jay Gould, and so there's a certain amount, right? So this is Mrs. Russell Sage gives the money for Sage Chapel, and we know that these talk about stealing things, right? So they got a lot of things that they were very happy to have, and then the men amassed all this wealth, and then their widows tried to save their husbands' souls from perdition by giving as much of it away to good causes as they possibly could. And so we're going to walk along, and we're going to go into the former Sage Chapel, which is now Our Lady of Perpetual Help Chapel. And so there may be people praying in there. And I want you to have a chance to see it and understand that it's not going to be the Sage Chapel that maybe you saw the last time you saw the inside of it, but I find that it's a spectacular combination. It very much respects the roots of that building. Like, they didn't put stained glass in everywhere. It still has non-stained glass, but it's a Catholic church, and so it's got a crucifix at the front with a lot of gold, and it's got a center aisle that.
You know why they didn't put the organ back in?
Because they can't. The organ can't be at the front because they need a crucifix there. So and the Stations of the Cross are there, and so there are certain things that are maybe going to break your hearts a little bit, but also know that it's a place of worship, and it's still a sacred space, and you can go in there with your heart. And I won't try to say anything more because I know I'll start to cry. I mean, it really is, in a way, I think for the souls of everyone who's spent time in Sage Chapel, I hope that it still somehow speaks to yours. And I'm going to say something else.
What's this building here?
So what's this building here? Stone. Okay. So this is a Victorian building. It's made of feldspathic granite, and the school bought a quarry up near the Winchester-Hinsdale line to quarry the stone for this building, and they found out some years later that they had been quarrying stone from this quarry that was not on their land. It wasn't school land. So, but there's red mortar between these granite bricks, so you see that, and then there's this feldspar, which is a mineral which sparkles, that's in this particular kind of granite, and so this is just what a beautiful thing. So this is the date on this. We'll see on the other side of the other pediment is 1884. Actually, this gable end fell down during construction the first time, and actually there was a fatality there, and so this building wasn't actually completed until 1885. So the same year as Marquand.
It was a classroom building?
This is a classroom building. So this is humanities classes, and I wrote a triolet to a colleague who just retired about that involves this building that I might read later. But let's so, and people will remember.
Boys would come out for a video.
Oh yeah. So there's Sandacountway. What's left of Sandacountway, probably, one of the buildings on this campus that I can't imagine very many tears were shed when they heard that Sandacountway was going to have to come down.
What was it used for?
It was modern languages.
Oh, it was world religion.
Well, world religion. So when you say,
Master Shin.
so this is And for the Mount Hermon people who never saw this, it's like if Cutler went on a diet, okay, and lost a story, but it looked a great deal like Cutler, and this is the space. So it's really interesting because one of the things about Thomas Aquinas is that they're great believers in community. They won't. Their school is never going to get to be more than 400. This will never be more than 450 students, because then there's a if you've read The Tipping Point, I haven't read The Tipping Point, but if you've read The Tipping Point, it talks about like how big a community can be before it ceases to be a community, and they really like to have their dining all in one place, and so they're building a dining commons. But I think they got this great plan for the dining commons, and then all of a sudden, oops, there wasn't quite as much money, and they had some other priorities, and so it wasn't a priority to get that going right away. So,
What year did they take it to the demolish?
about 2 years ago. So,
Is it aesthetic or structural?
oh, because they wanted to build it. They need a dining hall, and they don't have one. I mean, this is one of the really interesting things about Thomas Aquinas is that if you took if you added up all the square feet of all the buildings that are here and said, well, what do you need for a campus of 450? They would be like way ahead of the game, right? Except that the buildings are not always the right shape or
We had
purposed
we ate
right.
in our dorms.
Right.
We had individual dining rooms.
Right. Yes, and that's where they dine now, but they're about to outgrow it. And so they're going to need to do something pretty soon or decide, well, we're not going to all eat together yet.
How many students were here in our Northfield days? How many girls?
Just under 600, just under 600.
But they don't want to get.
Oh, in your area, maybe more closer to 550, I think. I think it's 69. So there's the power plant. So that provided heat for all the buildings. So there was steam. There's steam pipes all over campus. The other thing that's interesting about that building, until 1962, they co-generated electricity here, and in the summers, the school, both campuses were off-grid because they were able to generate enough electricity. But like during the school year, there were too many other things going on, that were drawing current. But it's really amazing to me that you could manage to have a school be off-grid, a campus this size be off-grid in 1962. They burned coal, and then the coal. So they burn coal. They generate steam, which runs through a turbine, which then runs a dynamo, an electrical dynamo. They're these Ridgeway engines. Somewhere, Center City, Philadelphia, there used to be a Ridgeway factory. I remember walking down the street and seeing it and being really surprised. I'm the only person in the world that cares about Ridgeways. So here we are. This is Sage Chapel, and so I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let you go inside. People who want to go inside to go inside, and then if somebody would like see that we all come out, or maybe people don't want to go in. Maybe you're happier not going in. Then yes, by all means. Oh, I think we might have to go in that other door. Senior door is locked. I think the other door should be open. Wilson House. Hi. but I have a relationship with them, and they
Well, clearly you know this place.
Yeah, I do.
I do. So my father taught at Mount Herman, and
You graduate?
I'm a graduate, and then I came back here. So I've been here as the archivist for 25 years. So I came back when we were still.
Okay, so most people know about Round Top, but not everybody knows about Evelyn Hall. Did you know about Evelyn Hall? So she's the first really long-serving and great principal at these schools. So like Henry Cutler gets all kinds of credit for being around forever, but Evelyn Hall, 1883 to 1911, she sees all of these buildings go up, like this and the music building and Weston and Hillside, and the auditorium isn't really under her control, but that home science, the gym, East. No, she's not here for East, but this is inventory of this campus can be laid at her feet. And so we're going to go and see her grave. Hi. Yeah. Yes. So it's a great spot to take a look at Gould, and that's not just a blank building facade there. There's all this detail between the floors. There are these beautiful windows. You could just put a double hung sash in every window and call that a day, but they didn't do that. And it's just, to me, that's just so elegant. Those little dormers in the roof, like you didn't have to do that, but they did. And we'll get closer to home science in just a minute. But you can see the same kind, just the architectural details that make that not a boring thing to look at. And so this is the one thing I've got this captive audience. And so I'm going to read you this poem that I wrote. It's a period piece because there's now a campus here. But this is from this book that I wrote. And I'm going to try to read this without crying. And I really thought I could get through this a couple of hours ago when I decided that I was actually going to even bring this over here. I thought it would be fine, but we'll see how this goes. This is called, and if you weren't my classmates, I wouldn't do this. But you've made me part of your class, so I'm going to read you this poem. It's called Evelyn Hall Sleeps Alone. So she died in 1911. She was buried here. Sage bells tolling, white dresses weeping, tears trailing over rough granite stone. Evelyn Hall, you sleep not alone. Red, orange, gold leaves, dryads drifting among fall trees, swirling back to campus home. Evelyn Hall, you sleep not alone. Vesper choirs through the chill air, raising their voices in dulcet tones. Evelyn Hall, you sleep not alone. Warm spring evenings, passions whispering, soft caresses at your lofty throne. Evelyn Hall, you sleep not alone. Now a crisp fall morning, leaves still a-greening, waiting in vain at your waiting in vain at your empty home. Evelyn Hall at last sleeps alone. So that's my it's she was really something. And no, it was moved here. It was brought here. It was in 1911 when and it's interesting because she's buried here. She has a there's a stone to her, a memorial stone in the family burial plot in Rhode Island. But this is where she is. Yeah, so we can see on the 1880. Yeah. No. No, 1855 to 1911. So 50. No, 45. 1855 is 50, and to 11. Yes. I can see this is really great. We all remember our addition. That's excellent. Okay. What? Well, I wrote that poem. I've not. No, I haven't. There's a really good biography of Evelyn Hall, written by D.L. Moody's son Paul, called Evelyn Hall, and you can find it. You can find it online. So, are people happy enough walking down this, or would people rather go a different way? This is fine. You can roll. Anybody who wants to roll down the hill can do that. Oh well. Turn around and walk backwards here. Oh. Shh. Ah. Yep. No. It's non-sectarian. Not even really Christian. At the time when I went there were a lot of Catholics that went there because they couldn't. Thomas Aquinas was new and they couldn't get in, and so they wanted the Great Books program. So they went to the other place instead. Oh, our chapel. Oh, because you have to have a center aisle in a Catholic church. That's the rule. That's just there's a bunch of things. No, you didn't. No. And I don't know whether did anybody call it home sides? No, Billings. So there was Julia Billings. So Billings, Montana. If you know Billings, Montana, it's the same Billings. And Billings, Montana. So Frederick Billings was a railroad guy. Like, it's just astonishing to me to think that an individual person, right, could own like thousands of miles of railroad tracks. Like, but anyway, he was a railroad guy. But his wife Julia Billings was a longtime trustee, and then her two daughters gave this in honor of their mother's birthday. This is 1908, and like, that's doing very well, thank you, for 115 years old, give or take. It was designed, well, home science, so it was designed like that's home economic, that's home ec. But it very quickly, but even when it was new, it had physics and chemistry laboratories in it. So before Palmer was built, this was the science building. And it's what a thing. I just maybe not. And here we look at, this is a great view of Stone. You see the clock tower, and you see this chimney, right? There's a chimney, but there's a window. So you can see, but if you see the base of the chimney above the window, you can see that there's a massive piece of stone there that's probably a hearth. So there was likely a fireplace up there. And I know that the library was in there at one point. I mean, before Talcott, but there we are. So let's like every angle that you get with stone, there's just little details like all these dormers and the details under the clock tower, that little window under the clock tower. That's just spectacular. Um, uh, we're not going to have time to go all the way over around the front of Marquand and see Wilson House, and in part that's because Marquand needs a great deal of work. It had a $5 million roof put on it, but it's got serious issues with. It's built of, I think there's like 4 courses of brick in the walls, and there are issues with what's going on with the brickwork inside the walls. They desperately want to save this building, and they also know that that's going to cost money, but they're going to do it. $5 million for the roof. Yeah, that's a actually I think the Moody Center paid. I think the Moody it was interesting. The Moody Center paid for it. It was before Thomas Aquinas got it. So we can now kind of walk across the grass here. So it's interesting that Mount Hermon doesn't get a gym until 1910, but Northfield gets a gymnasium in 1895, and I think, and even though they should have gotten you a gym before you graduated, it's really funny because there's this promotional film that was made in the 63-64 academic year. They're talking about and they've got all these shots of too many people occupying Skinner Gym, and they're saying, and we're going to build a new fitness center and gymnasium, and how great it's going to be. And it took them rather longer than they expected to get that done. So you didn't.
We remember that.
Yeah. Yes. Right. But
What's the fate of the new gym?
of that one, they're using it.
Oh yeah.
They're using that. They're using that as a gym. Yep. And this building so it became the student center when the schools went co-ed after they built the gym, and it's still it's interesting that they've renamed certain buildings after saints because that's their custom, and so but they still the college students all use the Northfield names. So they're trying to. This is Blessed Versati Hall, but yeah, but all of the kids call it Tracy, and they're pretty insistent about Tracy. Like, yeah, well, right. So the new gym is over.
That was your gym?
Beyond Gould,
But you never used it.
just east of Gould. That was 71. It opened. So it opened. The last Northfield class used that gym a little tiny bit in the spring.
And then after Montclair, did they still use that gym?
After
Campus? After Montclair?
Oh yeah. So there were dance studios in there, and there was the pool there was better than the pool across the river.
Better than the pools here.
Oh yeah, well, so the pool at Skinner they turned into after they built Dolben Library, they turned it into a movie theater. Yeah. So would anybody like to? I think we can go in Tracy if you'd like to see the interior there, or yeah, why not? I think we cannot. Yes, they are. So we can't.
What?
So look
Yeah, I
at
think up there,
10
up,
of 2.
up the hill.
147. Okay, so I think we probably should not. If you want to have your thing at 2, I think we need to keep walking. So, but I want to look at a couple of things. I want to get down and see. So Tracy gets, this is years after you, right? But it's not so many years. It's only like, what's, like, so 18 years. Like, add 18 years to 69, you get 87. Like, how could that be? Well, anyway, they put this addition on, and this library is where my office was. I love this building. Loved this building. I still love it. But see how it goes with the building next to it. Now turn around and observe the brick addition from 1953 put on to Talcott.
Why would they do that?
Or you could look at the house, Chutter House, built on the end of East Hall. So there was when I was first working at the school, the summer of 2001, the alumni magazine did this big article, and the front cover was the arches on the front of buildings from this radical angle, looking beautiful. And it was the headline on the front cover of the magazine was Architectural Gems. And I wanted to write a sequel article called Architectural Gems and the Additions Which Ruined Them. Like that's what you do. But this is what you do when, let's get out of the road. This is what you do when you don't have enough money to build something beautiful. And again, so, like, you know the music building, and you know, like, all the composers' names that run around the pediment of the music building. Can anyone name the composers whose names are on the back of the building? Yeah, so there are composers on the back of the building. And like, I can't, well, so like, those are the famous guys who are around the front. I couldn't tell you who's around the back, but that would be a really great trivia question. What composers, like, name one. I couldn't name one.
So name 10 out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
A dollar a bed.
So that's 87 is the new library. Yeah, and they use it as a library. They don't love it because it's a perfect high school library because it's really functional. It's really, really great, but it does not have the kind of gravitas that a college library, that they would like a college library to have, which is too bad. Like they didn't take a church, an interior of a church, and turn it into a library, that kind of thing. Like at the way they did it at Washington, that kind of elegance. 05, spring of 05, and this building. So the music building and Sage Chapel opened the same year, 1909. So that's at the 30th anniversary of the founding of the schools. So if you think about the buildings that were here in 1909, this building, Home Science, Marquand, Talcott, East, Stone Hall, Weston, the auditorium, that's a pretty nice campus. Wilson, I mean not Wilson, Hillside. Knew had an L in it.
I was at